Monster Challenge. Chapter 1. Is your job boring? Asked the hairy green creature on the television. No, Wagner the werewolf said, talking to the TV. He finished his drink and crushed the can in his hand. Do you get tired of scaring people all day? The advertisement continued. Would you like to try something new? What about a job where you can be nice to people instead? No thanks, Wagner said, switching the channel. What is the point of being a monster, he asked, if you don't scare people? And sometimes eat them. He had never liked commercials. He would rather watch ice skating than commercials. Of course, most werewolves did not have very much patience. He threw the crushed can into a trash can. I agree, said a voice with no body. Who said that? Wagner asked. The room was very dark, except for the light from the television. He did not see anyone else, so he smelled the air. He recognized the scent immediately. Oh, it's you. I didn't know you were coming tonight. Dr. Griffin, the invisible man, nodded his head, but Wagner could not see it. The werewolf could, of course, smell the human. Werewolves have very good noses, and humans have very bad smells. I can never fool you, Griffin said with a laugh. He was in a happy mood. He sat down in an empty chair and picked up a newspaper. The only thing the werewolf could see was a pair of shorts and the newspaper. The invisible man did not like to wear a lot of clothes. He preferred to sneak around, so no one could see him. They were at Count Dracula's new mansion in Virginia. It was very large and expensive. It was surrounded by a small forest. There were a lot of woods and hills in Virginia. They were waiting for Dracula to come home. He was their boss, and tonight was the monthly meeting. Everyone had to come. Attendance was mandatory for all the classic monsters. Even if you had to come from overseas, was a good place for monsters to live and hunt. Anyway, I agree with you, Wagner, Griffin said. If you're going to be a monster, you might as well scare people. He turned the page of his newspaper, but he was secretly looking at the werewolf. Add a little bit of body text. Wagner frowned and showed his sharp teeth. But you are not really a monster, he said. You're just a human that no one can see. That does not make you a monster. I think it depends on your definition of monster. Okay, by my definition, you are not a monster. Where is Frankenstein's creature? Take a look at that big, ugly guy. That is a monster. Be quiet, Griffin said. Keep your voice down. I think he is in the house. So? His hearing is terrible. Well, I cannot argue with you. Old Frankie is one of the world's most horrible monsters, the invisible man agreed. I cannot compare to him. He is much more horrible and scary than I am. You are not scary at all, the werewolf interrupted. But, Griffin said, ignoring the insult, Frankenstein's creature is so stupid. He can never be a leader. Do you know what I mean? He does not have much potential. You don't know him very well. He is smarter than he looks. Besides, no one said you must be intelligent to be a monster. I realize that, Griffin said. But to make a real impact on the world, you have to be smart. Look at me, I'm a doctor. Oh, a doctor. Big deal. I guess if you want to be a boss, you should be smart, Wagner said. But most of us are not interested in power. In fact, most of us are happy staying hidden. We don't need a lot of attention. We don't need to be important. We scare a random person once a month or eat somebody once in a while, but we are not hungry for power. You should know that by now. I think that is the problem, Griffin said. We need to be better organized. We need to be smarter. Then we could take over the world. The werewolf yawned. The invisible man was not paying attention. He always talked about the same things, and Wagner had heard this speech before. The invisible man was only interested in taking over the world. It was his obsession. Wagner walked into the kitchen to make microwave popcorn. If you want to rule the planet, go ahead, he shouted from the kitchen. Nobody is stopping you. I cannot do it by myself. I need the other monsters. We have to work together as a team. Most of the others do not care about that stuff, Wagner said. He walked back into the living room a few minutes later. He was carrying a bowl of popcorn. The werewolf changed the channel again. There was nothing good on. He turned the television off and stood up. With the TV off, the room was completely black. "Hey, it is too dark in here," Griffith complained. "I can't see in the dark." "I can," Wagner said. He walked behind the Invisible Man's chair. He grabbed the newspaper and tore it apart. "Ah!" Griffin yelled. "So," the werewolf said, "now you know what it is like when you can't see somebody. It is annoying, isn't it?" "I can't help being invisible," Griffin said. "I didn't ask to be this way." "Yes, you did. You made the potion which turned you invisible." "Well," Griffin said, tripping over a small table. "Turn a light on, please." Somewhere in the darkness outside, a dog howled. A door opened, and a breeze of air came into the room. Dracula walked in without making a sound. "Good evening," he said. He flipped on a light switch with a long finger. "What are you two talking about?" "We are talking about monsters being dumb," said the Invisible Man. "I see," Dracula said. "I hope you are not referring to me." The old vampire looked directly at Griffin. Chapter 2. Somehow, Dracula could always tell where the Invisible Man was. Vampires had many secret powers. Since Dracula was the oldest vampire, he had many abilities. He never let anyone know everything he could do. He liked to be mysterious. "I didn't mean you, boss," said Griffin. "Actually, Wagner is the one who brought it up. He said most monsters are stupid." Dracula smiled. His red lips were very dark, compared to his pale white face. "Of course, monsters are stupid, but they are smarter than the humans." The Invisible Man knew it was an insult. He would always be a human, even if other humans could not see him, but he was so different from other people. Most of the time, he felt like a monster, even if he was not one. That is why he wanted to work with the monsters. He needed them to do what he wants. "Mr. Hyde is a smart fellow," the werewolf said as he picked up his bowl of popcorn. "But I think the average monster is a complete idiot. We really need a better education system, Dracula." No one ever talked to Dracula like that, except Wagner. Most of the others were afraid of the old vampire. There was good reason to be afraid of him, but the vampire and the werewolf were friends. Sometimes they even went hunting together. "We do not need smarter monsters. We have a few bright ones," Dracula stated. "Mr. Hyde, you, myself, I am probably the brightest one." "You are, boss," the Invisible Man said. He gave a thumbs up, but no one saw it. But Wagner was very powerful and bold. He challenged the old vampire. "Are you sure you are the smartest of us all?" he asked. "Who is brighter than I am? Tell me the name of a smarter monster. You can't." "I'm thinking," the werewolf said, chewing a mouthful of popcorn. He licked the salt off of his long fingernails. "What about that guy in the bandages?" "What guy in bandages?" the Invisible Man asked. "You mean the wrapped-up guy?" "Yes, he's all wrapped in bandages." Dracula laughed and the ground shook. "You don't mean the mummy? Are you kidding me? He is a total idiot." The werewolf's eyes glowed bright red. "The mummy is dumb now, but he was not always like that. Before he died, he was the ruler of Egypt. He was a smart person back in the old days." "That is only a rumor," Dracula said, rolling his eyes. "Anyone can say I was the ruler of Egypt. Whatever. He has never been able to prove anything." Wagner scratched his back. "Why would he lie about it? He is crazy. Last month he said he won the Olympic gold medal for swimming." The Invisible Man coughed. "I remember that." He tried to sneak his hand into the bowl of popcorn, but the werewolf caught it. "Don't touch my popcorn. Get your own." Suddenly, another person entered the room. Actually, it was not a person. It was the swamp creature. "It's true," said the swamp creature. Most of the others had a hard time understanding it. It did not speak the English language very well. It had a large mouth like a fish, and it did not like being out of the water. Most of the time, it lived underwater, but tonight it had come for the monthly monster meetup. "It's true," the swamp creature repeated. The mummy was an Egyptian pharaoh thousands of years ago. I doubt it, Dracula said. But it does not matter. He was not a monster back in those days. That is what we are talking about. The mummy became a monster later, after he died and came back. How did he do that? Asked the Invisible Man. I would like to come back from the dead. Oh, but I don't want to drink blood. Have you ever tried it? No, that is disgusting. Dracula gave him an evil stare. All vampires begin as humans, then we become vampires. By dying. It is complicated, but yes. Then you are like the mummy, the Invisible Man said. It was a mistake. Dracula flew across the room and grabbed Griffin by his invisible neck. Do not compare me to him. Wait. Are you going to kill me? I'm thinking about it, Dracula said. Probably. Don't make me a vampire. I want to stay human. Why? Wagner asked, spitting out a popcorn kernel. You always say you want to be a monster. I want to stay human, Griffin repeated. Because I don't want to become stupid. I may not be the smartest person on Earth. You are the dumbest, Dracula said, bringing his sharp teeth close to Griffin's face. But even the dumbest human is smarter than the smartest monster. Dracula was so angry he threw Griffin across the room. No one else could see the Invisible Man, but they saw a window break. Dracula had thrown Griffin through the window. He had fallen into a bushy shrub outside. Griffin stood up. He looked in the window. I'm okay, and I challenge you, Dracula, to a contest. I can't believe it, the werewolf said. Never pick a fight with the king of the vampires. I'll tear you apart, Dracula shouted. No, not a fight, the Invisible Man said. You say you are the smartest monster. You say I am the dumbest human. Let's see if the dumbest human is smarter than the smartest monster. That is my challenge. The other monsters looked at their boss. Dracula had no choice. He accepted the challenge. Chapter 3. Griffin explained the rules of his challenge at the monster meetup. He wanted to be the next leader of the monsters. This was his big chance. Who is the most powerful of the monsters? We know it is Count Dracula, our leader, he said. The others sat in the living room, listening. Frankenstein's creature had finally arrived, and a few zombies were sitting on the floor, like children. There was also a witch from the east, Mr. Hyde, who had flown in from England, and the ancient mummy. The mummy was too stiff to sit down, so he stood in the corner. He stood away from the fireplace. And who is the smartest of the monsters? The Invisible Man waited for anyone to answer. Dracula is, Dracula said. Stop wasting our time. What is your point, Dr. Griffin? Yes, you are the smartest, Griffin agreed. Dracula is the smartest monster. And what has he done for us? The others looked around. Dracula crossed his arms, but said nothing. Anybody? Griffin asked. Let me ask again. If he is the best we have, what do we have to show for it? Nothing. After all these years, we continue to hide in the shadows. We act like we are afraid of the humans. We should be in charge of them. We have our own television channel, the swamp creature said. The others nodded. It is terrible, Griffin said. All it plays are old reruns of shows. That is not important. What is your point? Wagner said. He was curious to hear about the challenge. You all have allowed me to be part of the monster team. Even though I am a human, you let me act like a monster. Thank you for that. But now, let me help you. You are my brothers and sisters. I can do better for you than Dracula has done. He was a human years and years ago, but he has forgot about human greed and human ambition. He is lazy. Dracula's eyes glowed. He chewed on his lip. He really wanted to kill Griffin, but he waited. He also wanted to hear about the challenge. Griffin could tell the others were getting restless, so he made his announcement to them. I challenge Dracula for leadership of the monsters. Here is what I need from you all. You will build 2 traps. Build both traps exactly the same. Make them identical. There can be only one way to escape the traps. I will not know it, and he will not know it. Do not tell us how to escape. That's it? Wagner asked. That sounds simple enough. The werewolf looked around the room. What do you all say? Do you agree with this plan? The monsters loved traps. Some of them were very good at making traps. They laughed and grunted and clapped. They agreed to the Invisible Man's plan. Wagner nodded his hairy head and turned to his boss. What do you say, Count Dracula? I am smarter than that idiot, he said, pointing at the Invisible Man. Any trap they build, I will escape from in seconds, but you must not use any garlic or crosses, he said. That would not be fair. The humans do not mind those things, but I hate garlic, and I really hate crosses. Then we are all agreed, Griffin stated. How long will it take to build the traps? Zara, the witch from the east, called her friends. They flew to Virginia on their broomsticks. Witches were great trap builders. Remember, no magic, and no garlic or crosses either, said Zara. They built 2 giant black boxes. Each black box was made of heavy metal. There were no doors or windows. There was only a small hole left open. The hole was big enough for a person to climb inside. Once the person was in, the witches would close the hole up. They would use metal torches, which were hot enough to melt the heavy metal. It would be as if there had never been any opening. The boxes would have no way out. Tell Count Dracula the traps are ready. Dracula was impressed. The witches were fast workers. They had built their traps in less than 1 week. They placed the traps near the edge of Foggy Bottom Swamp. Very nice work, ladies, Dracula said. He looked around the swamp. It was very dark. The other monsters had all gathered together to watch the contest. The moon was full and bright, and it was very late at night. The contest would begin at midnight. Where is Griffin? Mr. Hyde asked. Did he get scared? Wagner smelled the air. No, he is here. I can smell his stinky clothes. Griffin, the Invisible Man, stepped out from his hiding place. He was wearing clothes, and his face was wrapped in white bandages. He also wore dark glasses. Everyone could easily see him. Sorry I'm late, he said quietly. He walked forward toward the black boxes. There is no reason to delay. Let us begin. Griffin climbed into the first box. The others watched Dracula. Dracula shrugged his shoulders and got into the second box. Seal them up, Wagner said. The witches used their torches and sealed up the holes. When the holes were sealed, the werewolf nodded. Now, swamp creature, push the boxes into the swamp. I did not know that was part of the plan, Mr. Hyde said. Wagner stared at him. It is now. Do it, swamp creature. Swamp creature was incredibly strong. He easily pushed both the heavy boxes into the water. They sank to the bottom of the water. No bubbles of air came up. There were no holes in the boxes. Now what? Mr. Hyde asked. Now we wait, Wagner said. They sat and waited, and waited. They waited all night, but neither Dracula nor Griffin ever escaped their boxes. What do we do now? Zara asked. I think we should celebrate, said a voice from the woods. We have a winner. Griffin jumped down from a tree. He was wearing a white bed sheet. Boo, he said. The other monsters jumped and yelled. Wagner, the werewolf, grinned. So, how did you escape? Then you are correct, Wagner said. We do have a winner. I was wrong about you, Griffin. You are a monster. The worst kind of monster. The humankind, Griffin said, laughing. And now, let's talk about talking over the world